So you are, as mentioned, Phillip Schane, DOC 91217. You're classified as a first felony offender. You were sentenced in Iberia, February 21st, 1980, to a life sentence for a second-degree murder conviction. Is that information correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And your parole eligibility date was determined to be August 1st, 2017. So your case was assigned to me, so I'll take the lead on the interview, Mr. Schane. So, Mr. Schane, how old are you, sir?
60.
How long have you been in jail?
I've been incarcerated 44 years.
And so that would make you, what, 16 when this occurred?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, so you tell us what happened 44 years ago to land you in jail.
The night that this crime happened, I was at my house getting ready to go out with my friends, and went through my mother's drawers looking for prescription drugs. Instead, I found a small caliber handgun in a box of shells. I put the gun and shells in my coat pocket, thinking that I would take it to the drive-in to show off to my friends. When I got to the drive-in after being there for a couple of hours, another guy that we knew pulled up on a motorcycle. I asked to ride the bike. I ended up wrecking the bike in the city park. By the time I got back to Happy Days and was talking with the owner of the bike and settled that let him know I would take care of the bike, I realized that it was well after my curfew, so I headed home. Cut through a field, and when you come out of the field, there's a four-way stop there. Miss Fouts, the victim, her house is on the right-hand side. And I saw the headlights of a car coming down the street, thinking that it may be a police car, and it being after curfew, I ducked behind Miss Fouts' car. She came out of the house and confronted me about being behind the car, told me that she was going in to call the police. I'd just been released from reform school like 7 months prior, and a lot of really bad things happened to me while I was in reform school, and I did not want to go back. I panicked. I tried to ask Miss Faust not to call the police, and as she dialed the number, I entered the house. I ended up pulling the gun, closed my eyes, and I shot and continued shooting until she was dead. I took Miss Faust's purse and car keys, and I left for the weekend. I went to New Orleans, tried to stay drunk and loaded the entire time I was there to try and forget what I had done, or maybe think that it didn't happen. When I came back, I dropped the car off. I went to my house. The following morning, the New Iberia City Police arrested me. I got to the police station. I was asked what happened, and at that time, I confessed to the crime.
Okay, and so you were on juvenile probation at the time.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. And were you, you say you were looking through your mother's, not your mother's, you were looking through the house and Miss Faust's things for, well, no, you went to your mother's to look, you found the gun. Were you high when this happened?
Yes, ma'am, I was.
On what?
I had taken a pill called Oratane, which is a hallucinogen. I had been smoking marijuana and drinking.
That day?
That evening when we went out. The club we went to was called Happy Days Drive-In. It's where all of us went to drink and drug together.
And did you know Miss Faust?
Miss Faust had taught me like in the first grade. I didn't really know her that well, but I knew who she was.
Right. What grade did you finish in school?
The last grade I finished was the 7th.
Why'd you quit?
I OD'd in school in the 7th grade and was expelled for the year. And when I went back the next year, I just skipped school the first like 21 days to purposely get kicked out. I didn't feel like I could do the schoolwork. I had struggled in school, so that's why I quit.
Then what'd you do? Just run the streets or what? What'd you do? How'd you spend your time?
No, when I got out of reform school, I was given the option to go back to school or work. I was found a job with working for Lopez Construction Company, which contracted for Clico doing electrical work.
And you were in reform school for, what was it? That
A series of burglaries and car thefts.
you know, take the cars and go ride around. Joyride is what the term you use.
Yes.
So you initially, it looks like you pled not guilty and not guilty by reason of insanity. There's a psychiatric evaluation. They didn't find any significant mental problems. So your attorney and you initiated a plea agreement. Is that correct?
Correct.
The second degree, I suppose.
Yes, ma'am.
So you mentioned you OD'd in 7th grade. How old were you when you first started using drugs?
I was 11 years old.
What'd you start with?
Marijuana. I saw my brother smoking weed in the car that we had in the front yard, an old car. And I went to the car and just asked him to smoke with him, started smoking then.
What did you progress to?
Just about everything. I went from, just like they say, a gateway drug. I went from marijuana to pills. I've done meth, coke, heroin.
Okay. So as I look at your you have quite a extensive record that was provided to us for review. It's a couple of hundred or more pages, and so the information is very extensive. I noticed you had an escape in 2003. Tell us about that.
2003, I had been diagnosed with hepatitis C and told that I was dying. About a week or so after receiving that diagnosis, a guy that I worked with, he and I got on the back of a cotton truck, rode out the front gate. A few hours later, we were apprehended in Natchez, Mississippi, and brought back to Angola.
And then, so you were about 40 at that time.
Yes, ma'am.
Right. And then about 6 years later, there was an attempted escape from CCR because you went to CCR after that episode.
Correct.
And there was an attempted escape from CCR. Tell us about that.
In 2017, we had been transferred to Hunt Correctional Center, and
CCR.
there were yes, ma'am.
CCR was
it was a CCR tier that they set up there. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
A couple of individuals had planned an escape. They asked me to participate in it. I initially said no, but subsequently joined in it. I made a very bad decision by joining in it with them. Thankfully, the plan was thwarted before it began. I cut a couple of bars in my cell, and we were all locked up and sent back to Angola to CCR.
And that was, you were 46 at that time.
Yes,
How
ma'am.
long did you spend in CCR? How much time did you spend there?
14 years.
So as I look at your record, I see lots of certificates of accomplishments. I think the number I saw was 142. So you started working, pretty early in your prison, right after you got to prison. And then, of course, that's when I see the certificates. And then in 2003, I guess as a result of the escape, your access was limited and that activity kind of stopped. Then there was the 2009 escape. Then you started, I think you did a little bit of work while you were in CCR to the extent that you could. So you were released from CCR when? What year?
In the beginning of 2018.
Oh. Almost 6 years ago.
Yes, ma'am.
And what have you done since?
When I initially got to the CCR, they put me in a CCR transition dorm to allow me to transition from being in a cell to general population. We had all of the life skill classes available to us there. Thinking for a change, inside out dad, 100 hours, victim awareness, and AA. I went through all of the programs. And when I went through the programs, I realized that this is something that I really believed in. I enjoyed the programming, so I went back through the programming again as in facilitator training. And when I began that's what I do now, facilitate life skill classes.
Do you facilitate the victim awareness?
Yes, ma'am. I do the moral compass class called TAPUKU, which is an acronym for the only person you cheat is you, and victim awareness.
So tell us about the victim awareness. What did you get out of that? Because you had to go to some additional classes to become a facilitator, didn't you?
I did, yes, ma'am. I
Did you learn?
I was trained by Ms. Jody Sturgeon, and what I got out of it was taught me a lot about who I am as a person, but it helped me to really understand what the victims of my crime have endured. The empathy taught me a lot about empathy. One of the main things that I learned was the pain that I caused the victim's family it's not going to end in 2 years or 5 years or 10. It's something that's going to last them a lifetime.
Yeah. So I do see some, an offer, I think, of employment from the Commissioner of Mississippi Corrections to be a chaplain. Tell us about your faith journey. Why would he offer you a position as a chaplain?
When Warden or Commissioner Kane was the warden at Angola, when the seminary, New Orleans Baptist Theological Seminary, first started in Angola, I was in the second group of people that went into the seminary. I developed a lot of strong relationships with many of the professors that were in the class, a lot of security officers that believed in the program as well. From attending the Bible college and being a participant in my own church, I was a minister on staff of our church and a teacher in the church. My faith, I mean, to me, that's the backbone of everything that I am. I have walked away from my faith, and each time that I have done that, you will see that's the errors when I made errors in my life. So that is why I hold on to my faith. with everything that I have, and recently told an individual in church that I will never, ever, under any circumstances, not be a participant in my church. I love Christ. I love going to church.
So, if you were able to speak to the victim's family, and you can't because you're prohibited by law, but if you could, what would you say?
I would want them to know how much I regret what I did to that family. You know, through facilitating the victim awareness class, I've, become so in touch with my own crime. And I know that I destroyed that family. I've caused them to have to live with something that no one should ever have to live with. If I could do anything to go back and change that, I would. Unfortunately, I can't. But I would want them to know that I have taken advantage of every opportunity that I have here to change myself, to become a better person. And what I want to do is help other people now.
When did you graduate from the Bible College?
In 2001.
Yes. Before your attempted escape.
Yes, ma'am.
Before your escape route from the with the cotton truck.
Correct.
And that's the one you planned, right?
Pardon me, ma'am?
That's this, you planned that escape.
Yes.
So why do you think we ought to give you favorable vote today?
I'm hopeful. The one thing that and I've thought about this, the one thing that I can say is that I won't say that I believe that I deserve this opportunity, because I took a human life. The seriousness of what I did, it's something that I'll never be able to change. But as a 60-year-old man, I have taken every opportunity to change myself. I have an opportunity, if given parole, to go to another maximum security prison that is having a lot of problems right now. And I want to go there to attempt to effect change there.
So I have just one more thing. Ms. Faust thought that, you have a juvenile record, and apparently Ms. Faust knew about it, and she said that she thought you were the one that had been breaking into her house.
Yes, ma'am.
Had you been breaking into her house?
I had not.
Not ever.
No, ma'am. I as someone that committed a lot of burglaries, one thing that I tried to never do is any burglaries in my own neighborhood.
All right. Any other questions? No questions by my colleagues, so we're just going to go and hear from the warden first. Warden, is there anything you'd like us to know about Mr. Schane?
We discussed his history as far as his write-up to escape, the attempted escape, since from 2009 up to 2018, 2009 being his last write-up. He had 9 years to think about what he had done, and was given the opportunity by our change in programming to allow him whatever chance it was, to give him opportunity to go into the maximum security dormitory. And that was back in 2018. And that, to me, from looking at where he is now, from 18 to present, that's when he truly, as far as his time with us, turned that corner and started devoting himself to a mentor, to help with others in the facility, and help to get where he is today. From a disciplinary standpoint, 2009 was the last time that we had any disciplinary. Take no exception to it. It was a grave mistake that he made in 2009. But again, from 18 to present, he's done very well for us.
Good, thank you. All right. We'll hear from the folks who want to speak in support. So let's see, could we hear from the Parole Project first, please?
Andrew Hunley with Louisiana Parole Project, appearing on behalf of Phillip Schane, appearing today to discuss the reentry plan that we've planned with Phillip. Obviously, the board is aware of the employment offer from Commissioner Kane. Should be noted that we think it's impressive that the person who was the warden during that last disciplinary infraction is actually offered him this job. So I think that tells us a little bit about his character and what Commissioner Kane thinks about his rehabilitation. But we agree that that is his best reentry option. While he does have a sister who lives in Lafayette, another sister who lives in Mississippi, we do think that the opportunity for him to eventually go to Parchman and serve in that role, which the board is aware other individuals like him who've left Angola have gone on to live in the community at Parchman and work at the prison at Parchman and do very well. We would ask the board that he first be allowed to enter our residential reentry program, where we would work with him on technological skills, financial management skills, and other life skills that will aid him in his eventual reentry. We're also aware that there have been times that the board has immediately paroled someone to the Mississippi plan, but we're hopeful that if he is granted parole, that he would be able to participate in phase one of our reentry program to help give him some extra tools before he would potentially go to Mississippi. As you're aware, Louisiana Parole Project has done the bulk of the reentry for juvenile lifers released since 2016. The track record for juvenile lifers being released has been mostly excellent, we think, based on the amount of time that Phillips has served in prison and the record that he has developed, especially who he's grown in to be, and the service that he's provided to his community. We think that we can help him achieve a successful reentry if he's given that second chance. And I stand by to answer any other questions this board may have about his reentry. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Let's see, Ms. Lori Shane. We hear from Lori.
Ma'am.
Go ahead, ma'am. What would you like us to know?
Excuse me.
She said, what was your, you go ahead and read.
Hi, my name is Lori, and I'm Philip's baby sister. When we were younger, Philip went to LTI. I thought that time away from him was horrible. Little did I know, when he got sentenced for life, I was 12. It didn't really hit me. I lost not only my brother, but my friend and protector. See, our mom was strung out on pills, and our dad was a violent alcoholic. Philip used to save me from them, then he left me for my entire life. He suffered many beatings for me. I've waited my whole life for this day to come. Now that it's actually here, it's a bit overwhelming. And so much hinges on the decisions made here today. My brother and I have grown up together. I was only 11 and he was 16. My brother Philip behind bars and me in the free world, visiting twice a month for so long. It was our way of life. So many obstacles and frustrations I've seen him overcome. He's accomplished so much with his life in Angola. He's turned Angola into a positive instead of a negative thing. We feel terrible about what happened, and I feel, as do my siblings, he's ready to become a free, productive man and spend the rest of his life with his family and friends on the outside, so his knowledge can be shared with others. My family prays you make all our hopes and dreams with my brother free of reality today. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, ma'am. Thanks for sharing that with us. We appreciate it. I think we'll hear from the opposition now. Ms. Howlington, I'll let you decide who goes first.
Good morning, Claire Howington from the 16th DA's office. I won't talk very long, I just have a few things to point out. I know that y'all are well familiar with that decline in this case. And I did put in my letter that I sent to the board a couple of things that I felt like were inconsistencies in the stories that we heard from Mr. Shane. I don't really feel like what I heard from him today resolved any of those inconsistencies for me. One of the things that, I mean, I know that y'all are very concerned about and I am concerned about is this history of escapes and attempted escape. Those are very serious offenses, and what has been some time since those occurred. However, I think that when you look at Mr. Shane's record and the fact that he murdered his spouse, it seems to me that my perception of it is that when he is faced with the opportunity to make a serious decision, when something goes wrong, the choice that he has historically made has been not just the wrong decision, but the worst decision. And I am very concerned that even though I fully acknowledge that he has worked on himself recently, and I want everybody who is incarcerated to work on themselves, that is part of the point of being there. However, I am very concerned that if he is not in that structured environment that he is in currently, that if he is faced with a decision that he needs to make, that the outcome could be very bad. I'm also concerned that there just has not been enough time that he had both served on this crime and also the amount of time between when he was released from CCR and there needs to be a longer history of good decision making before we even approach whether or not he would really be a good parole candidate, in my opinion. I would just ask the board tonight, because I don't think that he is a good candidate for release, and I'm concerned about safety.
Thank you. I appreciate your input. Ms. Mariner? Okay, take your time.
Take your time.
Obviously, I'm not a speaker, and just bear with me. But in 2016, when he had a hearing in our very embarrassing, we had to listen to a long story of everything he'd ever done, an excuse for everything. At that time, I didn't feel he had any remorse or any accountability for anything that we did. And since that time, we've gotten a letter from him that he stated that he didn't know what to expect at that time. Well, after having listened to that story, I think he knew what was going to happen. He had this story. And I think since that time, he's followed the rules and is doing what he needs to do. But I don't think it can sustain. I think that at that time, when he wasn't granted parole, he had a kiss fit and be on the table and talked about, well, that's what you expect from our very marriage. And really acted out very badly. And I just think that to be trusted.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much for being here. Mr. Shane, before we turn it over to Ms. Pasquarello, is there anything you'd like to say to us?
Yes, ma'am. I wrote something down if it's permissible for me to read it. This is the thoughts that I've had coming up to the parole hearing. I said that there are no words to adequately express how sorry I am for the pain and heartache that my actions have caused the children, grandchildren, and all who knew Miss Faust. I also want to apologize and acknowledge that where others were forced to find a way to deal with such a tremendous loss, I chose the cowardly way of dealing with my guilt and shame through the use of drugs and alcohol. I hated myself for a long time, and while I will always hate what I did, I no longer hate myself. I'm grateful to so many of the staff members here who I credit with helping me to become the man that I am today. Their belief in me caused me to believe in myself. If granted parole today, I vow to continue my efforts toward effecting positive change in as many lives as is possible. Thank you.
Well said. Ms. Pascarella?
Yes, ma'am, thank you. You know, the story here is certainly one of tragedy, but it's also one of change and of perseverance and of redemption. Phillip in many ways represents the promise of Miller and Montgomery, and of Act 277, the reason that we're here. He is what it looks like to learn from mistakes and to keep going, to not let them defeat you, to keep striving to do better and to be better. When he committed this crime, Phillip was a 16-year-old child whose young life, and I hope you saw the extensive history in our packet, his young life that was characterized by torture, by neglect, by drug addiction, and who in the months before this crime had been the victim of a brutal gang rape at LTI. On drugs and in a panic that he would be sent back to the site of that assault, 16-year-old Phillip committed this terribly tragic crime. But 44 years later, he is no longer that 16-year-old. He's instead a 60-year-old man, a compassionate teacher, a leader, and a mentor to others. He has made mistakes along the way. 20 years ago, he made some big mistakes. We discussed these escapes, and we've discussed them today. We discussed them at length at his resentencing hearing. I'm sorry that you weren't able to hear in person from Warden Vinoy, who had a scheduling conflict but wanted to be here. He did submit a letter that I hope you saw, and there are some notes in our expert reports. Warden Vinoy has noted that that escape, he picked Phillip up from that escape. It was not violent, that Phillip has learned his lesson from that he turned his life around, and Warden Vinoy has said it should not preclude him from a second chance. Phillip has grown from someone who did not complete the 8th grade, as you heard, into a graduate of the Bible college, from a kid who suffered early on in prison to someone who has had only one write-up in 20 years and none in the last 14. He has done every rehabilitative program available in the prison, and he's done them multiple times because he teaches them. That he has been rehabilitated is supported by the fact that the prison has made it Phillip's job to teach rehabilitative programming in this prison. And it's not a job, as you all know well, that anyone can hold. There are only 50 facilitators in the entire prison. To be where Phillip is today, I think Warden Falgood said it well, to be a Class A trustee at Camp F, a facilitator, a mentor, a lead trainer at PAWS, it's all shorthand to say he's been highly vetted and by this prison as to his rehabilitation and his trustworthiness. Prison officials who have known him best, Warden Vinoy has known him for 40 years as an example, they've been unanimous in their support of him. They've said he's a model inmate, that he's always been polite and never violent. I hope you saw the notes from other officials who spoke at the resentencing hearing, but again, there are notes in the packet. His supervisors who've said he's one of the best trustees that we have. His supervisor who said all of his efforts are towards helping others. He's a compassionate guy. He's a role model who walks the walk. They say they know of no negatives against him. Phillip is someone who has had a near perfect record in the last 20 years. And I've heard the concerns that the board raised today and the concerns that the state has raised, and those concerns have been raised and disposed of in the district court as well. And of course, the board it has every right to reconsider them. But I think the board also knows, as we all know, that rehabilitation isn't a straight line. It's not a perfect line. Like in life, we don't look for perfection because the outside world isn't perfect. Rehabilitated people don't make no mistakes. They don't let their mistakes define them. They look to learn from them, to get better, to work to help others. And that is what Phillip has been doing. And that is why Warden Kane wants Phillip working for him in the prison. I suspect it's why this prison likes him working here. because Philip has done the hard work of falling and getting back up, and now he teaches that to others. Every court, every expert, including a well-known psychologist who met with Philip over multiple days over the last 4 years, has looked at Philip and met Philip. They have noted the extraordinary transformation that he's made. Dr. Simoneau, who evaluated Philip over the last 4 years, has noted that maybe it did take him longer. Mrs. Renazza, perhaps this is what you were getting at, but maybe it did take him longer than others to reach what we'd like to see as his full transformation. But he also noted, Dr. Simoneau, who's evaluated hundreds, if not thousands, of people in Philip's situation, that he's made more emotional strides than is typical, and that he's taken genuine responsibility and expressed genuine remorse in that setting for what he has done. I know there hasn't been a day that's gone by since November 2nd of 1979 that Philip hasn't felt shattering grief and remorse. He's always taken full responsibility. He gave a full confession when he was arrested. 16-year-old Philip actually tried to hang himself in the parish jail, leaving a note to his family saying, "I did this. I killed someone. I feel I should not be in this family." What we know about his genuine remorse and his genuine accountability, again, discrepancies around facts, he has done his best to be straightforward and honest about facts. That's another issue that has been raised and disposed of. I think what we know is that the prison has put him, well, I guess what I was going to say is what we know about remorse is not so much what you say, but also what you do. And what we know is that Philip has done that work. The prison has put him in a position to not just be accountable, but to teach accountability to others. I've personally seen Philip struggle with his sorrow and look to express it. And what I've seen him do is harness his guilt and shame and propel him to strive to be the best person he can. He's used it not to be perfect, but to keep working, to acknowledge his mistakes, take ownership, and keep going. Just a couple other things I want to mention that didn't come up today. When Philip isn't working his job as a facilitator, you can find him giving back. You can find him training his black lab puppy Soldier for the PAWS program, or cleaning the kennels, or caring at great expense for the stray cats on the compound, or running an AA group, or preaching at the church, or taking guys aside who are struggling and counseling them. He's a mentor in title at the prison, but he's also a mentor and a role model and a leader when no one is watching. He's spent the last 4.5 decades in prison working very hard to come from where he came from, to overcome what he came from and what he did. And he has everything that he needs now today at almost 61 years old to be successful outside of prison. He is sober. He treats his sobriety rightfully as the most important thing in his life. He's gone years and years and years in a difficult prison environment with no misstep, not even small. When the state has raised this question of how does he react to adversity, we know the answer to that. In the last 14 years, he has dealt with adversity. You all know that well. There is conflict every single day in this prison. And we know that Philip has learned how to deal with adversity, make the right decisions, and walk away from conflict. If he hadn't, he would have had a write-up in the last 14 years. He has a job offer working for Commissioner Kane at Parchman Prison, the support of his siblings, his little sister, who's been waiting for this moment since she was 11 years old. You heard from her, also Kathy and Cindy, who I know is watching. And he has the support of the Parole Project. Every one of us, and I include the prison officials and administrators who have worked so much with Philip and believe so much in him, are confident in the enormous success that he will have and the light that he will bring to those around him if granted parole today. And we pray that you give him this chance.
Thank you. Panel, okay, Mr. Schane, as you've heard here today, there's strong opposition. There's also strong opposition noted in the record from law enforcement. I read the judge's order in September of this year, giving you life with parole. I read the order and I read the reasoning behind it, and I do agree. You're not the worst of the worst. I do share some of the concerns that has been expressed here today, particularly Ms. Marino's statement about your reaction to your sentencing hearing in 2016 in Iberia Parish. You know, we talked about you plan in this, you graduated to Bible college, you planned an escape and were successful in 2003. You got moved to Hunt. You participated in another escape. You claimed that 2003 was your knee-jerk reaction to being about the hepatitis diagnosis and prognosis. And then in 2009, you participated at the urging of others in an escape attempt. As you said, thankfully that was thwarted. But I do have, and then you've only been released from CCR, just over 5 years. I have some concerns. I think I agree with Ms. Hallington. I need a little more sustained period of time to be sure that you are capable in adverse situations to make good decisions. For those reasons, and I'm only one vote, but for those reasons, my vote today is to deny your book. Mr. Rocha.
Good afternoon, Mr. Shane. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
I've listened intently. I've read all the documents. I've read all the list of accomplishments. And I've known you've been incarcerated for 44 years. But CCR is a restricted, and to be in restrictive segregated quarters for 14 years, and you got out in 2018, it's only 5 years that you've excelled. And I too would like to see more time with that same performance. So based on a very, very poor institutional record, your first 35, 40 years, I need to see more time. So my vote is to deny your request.
Mrs. Jackson.
Mr. Shane, you have done well recently. You've accomplished a lot recently. But I am concerned about, I understand that nobody is the same at 60 as they were at 16. I would hope that all of us, overcome mistakes and grow and toil and make better choices. But when I look at your prison conduct, you were well beyond those years of development as a juvenile. And yet you participated in two escape attempts. And then it tells me that at your hearing in 2016, when it didn't go the way you expected it to go or wanted it to go, you acted out. And you were in your 30s then. And so that causes me pause, Mr. Shane. It really does. And so today I'm really not comfortable that you are ready. I think you will be one day, but I just don't think today is the day. So my vote today likewise is to deny.
All right, sir. Mr. Shane, you'll have the opportunity to reapply again. I encourage you to do so. Good luck to you, sir.